Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Neural Networking with Ketan. Today, we have the privilege of introducing you to Dr. Satyam Priyadarshy, a transformational leader renowned for his expertise in leveraging disruptive technologies. With a PhD from IIT Bombay in quantum chemistry and an MBA from the Pamplin School of Business, Virginia Tech, Dr. Priyadarshi combines profound scientific knowledge with extensive business acumen. He is a globally recognized as a pioneer in data science, big data analytics, quantum and emerging technologies. Dr. Priyadarshi's remarkable contributions have earned him numerous accolades, including being named among the top 100 most influential AI and analytics leaders in the USA by MachineCon USA 2023 and recognized as one of Forbes India's top 10. Yes, you heard it right. Top 10 outstanding business leaders in 2022. Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi truly embodies the spirit of innovation and leadership, making him an inspiring figure in the realms of technology and business. Welcome, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi.
Thank you, Ketan, for your invitation.
So, what we would be discussing is about generative AI. How do you navigate the AI tool landscape? Then, some things about retail and CPG data challenges. Then, we will be going to discuss about data driven strategies for mid market companies, some questions regarding oil and gas industry, and at the end, we will focus on the future, that how do you see it. So, this would be on the agenda for today's discussion. So first comes generative AI, because everyone is looking to do something in the Gen AI space, and the ChatGPT wave is picking up. But there is always this discussion whether it's hype or its potential. We are curious to hear your thoughts on generative AI. Do you believe it's all hype, or does it hold real potential for the future? Additionally, where do you see this technology evolving in the next few years?
Yeah, good topic, Ketan. Generative AI. I think people have been playing with this technology for some time, right? But the release of Chat GPT to the general audience just created a swirl around it, and everybody from the top level of an organization to the board members to engineers, everybody thinks now this is the best thing after the slice of bread, right? With any technology, when it's marketed well, it looks like, okay, this is the only thing that you have to now focus on, and that's what the hype you see in the market. Like, everybody wants to talk about generative AI, but at the same time, there are some great things about it, while there are also things that one should actually wonder whether is it really for me in my actually a business application, right? So let's talk about certain good parts of it. Somebody has built a model, right? Whether let's not name the companies, but there are so many of them, correct?
True.
And every day we are listening to, like, every day new application of it is coming, whether it comes to creating videos or text or images or things like that, right? But what's the foundation of it? Foundation is all the data that has been mined by these people, correct?
Correct.
And we all know from simple analogy, like the more, say for example, if you read 5 books, you can actually get more knowledge out of it. And then you can, I think there was an old saying many years ago that if you read one paper and write another paper, that's called plagiarism, right? If you read two to three papers and then you write a summary, then it's called, still you have to give proper reference.
Right.
But if you read 100 papers and then write a paper, then it will be something that you created, correct?
True.
Of course, you have to give the proper attribution. So you generated a new piece of literature by reading 100 or 1,000 or whatever the number of papers. So in some sense, in very simple terms, that's what generative AI is, right? It has basically read every possible book that is accessible to it, or every possible image that is accessible to it, correct? And now when somebody says, I have this question, it generates an answer,
Right.
correct? So it certainly is very helpful for certain people who have difficulty in synthesizing information, correct? In a short period of time. certainly in business world it becomes even more valuable, if because as you know, and that most of the major complex industries, if I want to call it that way, bigger industries, they have been sitting on so-called large volumes of data which has never been tapped,
True.
right? Because mining data is not the easiest of things unless you invest in it. Now one can actually leverage generative AI models for your internal data sets. In the, of course, this is a generic statement, but you have to be little careful how you do it. So we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
But in principle, that's what it is. You can leverage these models on your internal data, and you can actually certainly find the nuggets which will allow you to improve your business, right? Or improve your product, improve your services, whatever the business you may be in, correct? Or build a new product out of like new design of a thing, right? And certainly one of the big terms in digital, people talk about digital twins, right? So there is a scope of like actually understanding what's in their data sets, and maybe you can actually start thinking about really building a digital twin, which itself is a very complex topic, right? But at the same time, it gives you a hope. Now, same thing you can talk about, whether it's image, whether it's a text, whether it's videos, like, you saw some articles recently where say people talked about you type a script and it will generate the video for you. Now, so which is good for people who cannot do, for heavens, any animation by themselves. Now they can be a movie director by overnight, right? But right, or I think there was I was last week I was in Dubai, and somebody sent me a link saying that you can actually give your words or verses, and it will actually, and say you want this to be on a tune of certain song, and it will actually take your words and put it on that tune and give you the actual melody.
Wow.
Right.
Right.
So now a person like me who can never sing can be now what a playback singer, right? Overnight.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Only thing is they still have to. It won't be my voice, but that's not far away. Like, now
Right.
my voice could soon the voices will be all recognized,
Right.
and you can actually put my voice on it, right?
Right.
Right. It may not be
Right.
perfect, but it'll be close. So if you look, the advantages certainly are there.
There.
But when we think from a business perspective, that's where we have to really think, where can I do? So one of the classic example that everybody talks about with generative AI is like customer experience, right? So that every time somebody asks a question, its answer is there. Every time the similar question is asked, more and more answers are there. So when the 101 person asks the same question, they get a more precise answer.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Because it has actually mined all the 101 responses before that may or may not have been perfect. So at some point, there will be a curve when the value of so-called automated customer service agent, or the bot, that people use the term bot, is better than human agent.
Right.
Right? I'm very specifically saying in terms of customer service, the kind of it. I'm not saying that for every human that it can be happen. For every human activity, it can be there, right? But that could be a significant value for some of the companies which are customer facing, right? Same thing is when if you look from a leadership perspective, if the right kind of application is built, then they can actually ask a very simple question: how is my sales in the northern region, right, in a certain city for this time period? They can ask the question as it comes in their mind, and instead of looking at a dashboard and then trying to do drill downs, you could get the answer that they want instantaneously.
Right. Information at fingertips in natural
Correct?
language. Yes.
Exactly, natural language, and almost anywhere, right? You can be on your car, and especially when you're stuck in traffic, you may have questions. You can't really go and open your dashboards on phones that easily. So you can actually ask the question, right? so these are some examples, they have much more applications, right? For example, in fact, yesterday I was speaking at a quantum technology conference, and combinations of generative AI with the upcoming quantum computers in combinations with artificial intelligence algorithms is going to be a very powerful force,
Right.
right? Especially in the areas of what I call drug discovery,
Right.
right? Because drug discovery is still, we haven't reached to a point where we can talk about personalized medicine for
Right.
like with value. Theoretically, everybody knows what personalized medicine is, but it's not very easy to still synthesize it for Ketan or for me, right? Unique. Both of us could
Right.
have the same headache in the same part of the brain, so to say, in the left side, but the medicine will be different,
Right.
needed, but nobody can give it yet. But if one actually takes the data from proteomics or genomics, right, and combine it by history, and then look at different properties of the different drug molecules, and then you can actually eventually create one. Now, that kind of synthesis of what you call multimodal data in many ways is not very easy. And I think generative AI actually can allow you to do that.
Right. Right.
Right? Um, so these are some examples where it can be very significant. Uh, what should I say? Impact on the businesses. But it has to be done right, thought out correctly, like any business, right? If since you built a startup, when you thought out, you must have come up with a plan, like what should I really do?
Right.
It's the same way. This is almost like something that you are trying to build a new business within your own current business, and you need to really plan it out. And why are we building it? The same question that we ask: why are you building a startup? Why are really you want to use generative AI?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And how much investment you need to like literally, if you want to put it into a startup deck, it's almost like that. So you're building a startup inside.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Uh, but the risk factors are there, so you have to worry about them.
Right.
Now, if we look at the challenges that it has, significant challenges. One, too much hype has been created that people think that, okay, just go to Copilot or go to Google's Gemini, or right, or any other hundreds of them, and you can just leverage it. And hence a new field got started called prompt engineering.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Now, fundamentals of that is very interesting, right? We all say that if you ask the right question, you will get the right answer, even in the colleges, right? So there's nothing new to that in concept to the prompt engineering, because, right, if you ask what is uh, LI, you might get answer that it's a LinkedIn, or you can say it's a location intelligence, right?
Right.
Now, if you don't qualify the question, you're going to get crazy answers.
Crazy answers.
So
Very
hence a
true.
new field came. So understanding how to ask the question is very important. In what context are we asking? And that requires a little bit of human brain, right? So computer is not going to do that for you.
Yes.
So hence it's a field that one really need to understand before jumping into it as to what we are trying to do. And the second, the social impact, the negative social impact is that you've heard, I think a month back or something, the Prime Minister of India, Modi ji, was saying about, in some context, about deep fake videos.
Yes.
And I've worked in the internet companies for a very long time, so I understand these things pretty well. That whenever there is such technologies, these kind of things will happen automatically. In fact, people on the wrong side are faster than the people on the right side, and hence the discussion that takes place about the governance of technology,
Right.
right? Policies about governing technology. They are always behind the technology, and only they start talking about it when they find something, some bad characters have already created something,
Something.
right?
Right. Right.
So that's social impact, right? Significant. And of course, it in long term it could have a geopolitical impact as well. I don't dwell that much on that side. Having done those kind of things in the past, I understand what are the challenges. And then of course, anytime such things happen, your cybersecurity challenges multiply as well.
Right.
Right now, earlier, we say that okay, an email is coming, there is a link, don't click on it. Now you're so fascinated by a video, God knows what is being embedded inside it, and you click on
Yes.
some symbol and you wipe off your machine,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So 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 these are like challenges that are there. But the other challenge from business point of view is like, if not planned well, it will be like failure case, and then people will say, oh, this is one of the worst technologies.
Yes.
And that is because you did not actually plan it well
Right.
for what business case I'm using. It's not like a black box, you put it out and it will do magic.
Right.
Hence, how to leverage needs to be learned.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's a fascinating area. I certainly have I feel that it's a great time because it helps you to combine things that we, in principle, could not be able to combine with existing technology solutions that existed, right?
Right.
Customer service has been talked about for decades.
Right.
But the other big impact that most people are not talking about it. All of you are very much aware, like about sustainability, carbon capture,
Right.
net zero, right?
Right.
Building these generative AI models is a significant carbon footprint.
Right.
And that is, people are not really talking about it. They are all going, okay, it's a great technology, run after it.
Right.
But if you keep using this technology in the wrong way, that means you are actually contributing to the carbon footprint significantly,
Right. Right.
right? Because it's not in front of you, you don't care, so to say. But hence the maturity in prompt engineering is critical. Understanding why am I want to use generative AI is very, very important, so that you do minimal effort, minimal carbon footprint, and get the right value out of it.
Right. Right. I think you summed it up greatly. So you started with the two amazing examples. One was the singing example that you gave, and the research paper example. Then you talked about a couple of areas. One being the customer service, and other being information being consumed at the fingertips on the go by the CXOs. I think you brought a very amazing angle of the sustainability, which you correctly said that not many people are still talking about that. And you also touched up areas about what the humans also have to learn, the prompt engineering aspect of things, which I think not many people are understanding it, that it is also a very critical factor, which you rightly brought to the table for me. And another thing that you highlighted is the governance part of it, is looking at it, the deepfake aspect, one example that you took. So I think this was very greatly explained. So thankful to you on this. So now one thing that you touched up in our discussion also was the tools and technology landscape. Like you mentioned that there are plethora of these things available and people are trying to understand and how to put them to use. So it's a challenge with the enterprises, that how do you navigate the AI tool landscape. So with countless AI tools available, choosing the right one can be overwhelming. So, what tips can you offer to our listeners to help them cut through the noise and find the perfect AI solution or a technology for their specific needs?
Yeah, so this is an age-old problem, right? Tools will keep evolving,
Right.
right? Uh, and we most of us, like most of the people in big businesses, at least, I'm not talking about startups, but most of the big businesses go after a vendor, so to say. Whatever the vendor provides, they go and implement it, right? And then as a result, they get literally tied down to those vendors or that a particular tool. And I think in a long term, those cause significant amount of wastage in terms of operational, what should I say, operational costs as well as capital cost, right? Because you get a tool, you buy the license, you get the maintenance, and then you continue for 3 year, 5 year, 6 year, 10 year contracts, right?
Right.
Uh, Even if the tool is not updated, you are still paying for it. I think the days for such kind of implementation of tools is over.
Right.
Um, and if you think of it, I think in data world, people talk about concept of data pipelining. I have spoken about it for many years. I think today the concept of tool pipelining has to be there. Of course, if you talk to technical people, they will talk about all these fancy terms called APIs and things like that. Right? I don't want to go into the technical architecture side of it right now, but in some sense, you need to use the right tool for the right piece of the puzzle and then pipe out the output to a different a tool rather than trying to find something that requires too much of customization because there's so many tools available.
Right.
Yes, when I say that, yes, you need to be cognizant about the security implications of those tools,
Right.
right? Whether you get it evaluated by a third party yourself, or you see if somebody has already evaluated and see what are its challenges before you implement within your infrastructure. Correct. If one does that, then I think the total cost of ownership of these tools will be significantly lower. They will be more efficient, and since it is modular, you would have chance to upgrade at the right point, at the right time for the right problem. Correct.
Right.
And with less pain and anxiety actually,
Right.
and and then you can keep up pace with all the evolving tools. The tools are evolving pretty much every day, so let's call it every day for now. Correct.
Correct.
Uh, and if you wanted to do it instead of being stuck to something, you could change it.
Right.
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 So one of fundamental things that I believe and I have practiced is like always use the tools with caution, but at the same time keep everything modular,
Right.
and don't like block your mind to one or the other tool. And I think that's the way to look at it, right? For example, let's take the example. What are you trying to do? You have, say, 1 million PDF files in your organization, correct?
Correct.
And either you can do pure text mining kind of as problem, which can give you certain aspects, or you can say, oh, can I use all the input from these PDF files to really create a beautiful image, right?
Right.
Which describes certain aspect of your workflow, function, whatever it may be, or a product, or like let's for the sake of it, can I build a new manual for the washing machine, right? Based on all the different documents that are there, the design documents, right? The manufacturing, etc., etc. Correct.
Correct.
Um, but then suddenly you realize, okay, images are good, but I really want to build it more like a video now,
Video now. Yes.
right?
It's a natural
Now, if you had,
evolution.
right, so you can upgrade yourself much faster if you use combinations of tool, because the way to read the same material, certain aspect of it, to write a text output versus an image output to a video output will be different.
Right.
Correct? And hence, one really need to first define in what do I want, what is the business problem I want to solve, or what is the goal that I want to achieve in short term, medium term, and long term.
Right.
And then I say, okay, for short term, I can play with these three open source, let's call it, right?
Right.
And see the data that I have, can it be really used correctly? Or does it even have value? Then I say, oh, this can be done. Now I really need to scale. That means I need tools which help me scale up. Correct?
Right.
Because then even if it's a commercial one that I have to buy, then I know that what am I trying to achieve out of it.
Right.
And then you say what my long-term plan is going to be and what is the life of this new tool, right? Eventually everything has a life.
Right.
And
Right.
if your end of life is 7 years, then you want to start looking at 5 years, like how do I replace it without
Right.
disrupting negatively the business.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think, in summary, what I would say is like any tools or technologies that we use in business, one really need to be cognizant as to what I want out of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? In at different time frames, uh, and then saying what is the combination of different of combinations of these tools and technology that I want to implement. You see, there is a component of talent in this as well, right? Because
Right.
without people, nothing happens. So I think while there is a huge discussion on no code and low code kind of programming, or generative AI doing coding for you, but I think we are a little bit far away when uh, every business problem solutions can be done without human,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And hence, how do we train our people? I was, in fact, in discussion 2 days ago, uh, we were discussing about how many people do we need in just in semiconductor industry, because in terms of building new quantum computers, right, or biocomputers
Right.
and things like that, there is a new set of computing paradigm that exists, right?
Exists. Yes.
Uh, right. US alone thinks that they might need 150,000 or 100,000
Wow.
kind of people just for the
Right.
semiconductor industry. And we are not talking about PhD level people, we are talking
Okay.
about technicians, machinists, you see,
Right.
right? Because you are, if in quantum computers, you have to build these qubit chips,
Right.
right?
Right.
And these are of all different kind of things.
Right.
So any tools and technologies requires human beings.
Right.
It's not like automated for us yet. Maybe someday somebody will come from Mars and we might be able to get it right.
Right. Right.
or,
Yes.
or in the context of India, maybe there is modern Vishkarma who can come and do it for us, right?
Right. Right.
Correct,
Right.
but we are not there yet. We can't even have energy to actually call such a person yet. And
Right.
so we have to rely on the people that we have on the Earth planet. So we need to train them.
Right. Right.
Correct.
Right.
So it's a important. It's a great times in terms of the availability of accessibility of these so many tools and technology, and then somebody has to do the research, somebody has to thought process, somebody has to combine them and then implement them.
Right, right. I think I love the way you put the word and the philosophy of tools pipelining. So that is something very critical. And another highlight which I want to for our listeners, mention is how the way you said the word modularity and tied it up to anxiety. Because if you are not enough modular, and the evolution example that you gave, that how do you want to go from images to the video part of things, so in that case it's a great example. If you are not modular enough and your tools pipelining of the input and output would have been not correct, then it would have directly resulted into you being anxious on how to integrate certain aspect or certain things. So I think that's the philosophy. I really loved the way you put that word of tools pipelining. Well, so just wanted to
Yeah,
highlight it to the listeners. Yes.
and I spent last 10 years in energy sector, and I'll comment it from India's perspective, even though I'm based here in US. Um, there are fundamental software that are being used in the energy sector, whether it is related to, say, seismic interpretation or drilling processes, things like that, which are fundamentally developed on scientific principles,
Right.
right? And if you think of it, that tool was built by certain XYZ companies over last 30, 40 years back, right?
Right.
And many of the organizations are stuck to that software, which is in many ways outdated uh, for various reasons, right? Whether
Right.
it is the architecture, whether it is the hardware on which it is run, all right? But underlying phenomena or underlying theory is purely scientific.
Right.
if people, and there are some open source now, people have built open source aspect of it, but the organizations haven't evolved themselves to actually take advantage of those open source technologies
Right.
because they are so tied into a big tool,
Right.
right? And this is expensive cost to the organization, and it's really 80% of is completely waste and drain to the system.
Right.
if if they had thought of, okay, the first 10 years you could not do it, agreed, but as the hardware technology evolved,
It's evolved.
your talent pool became smarter,
Right.
right? You could have built pieces of the puzzle in collaboration with various institutes
Right.
or various organizations or various private companies for the problems that are being solved for the energy sector within the nation.
Right.
And then you could have provided that as a resource,
Right.
but nobody has thought of it. That's why tool pipelining is critical if you want to really have cost effective and agile system.
Right. Right.
Like 80% of the people who have developed this software came out of IITs,
Right.
so to say.
Right.
So why could not have somebody at a national level one build that?
Right. Right.
Correct. And
Correct.
hence, I think this is the time, and thankfully, whether we use generative AI to write those pieces of the module now, right? But at the same time, it does provide you a channel where you could do that faster.
Right. Right. So I think this was a great piece of discussion that we had on the AI tools landscape and in general about the tooling. So the other component apart from the tooling is the data. The data is the most critical component of all the things that we're trying to build. So, talking about data driven strategies for mid market companies who are trying to leverage this technology, what advice do you have for smaller and mid market retail and CPG businesses who want to implement data driven strategies? As I'm moving towards now industry specific things, so we would be touching this question regarding the retail and CPG space and how can AI play a role in their success?
I think, data has always played a role, right? It's not something new. At least I personally never thought that there is nothing new. People are talking about as if it's a new thing. But from my days of PhD, that I know at least, right? Before that, I may not. But uh, I know that without that data that I generated through quantum chemistry calculations, I could not have done any theory, right?
Right,
So data has always played a big role. Question is how the data is generated, how is it actually used, and for what purposes, right? So whether it's a good or a bad times, but it is a great time. Basically, it's that um, data is available to us, right?
right,
More easily accessible than I would say 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? When you were putting them on floppy disks to tapes and things like that.
right,
Uh, but has it been completely utilized? That is the question, right? Every business I know, whether talk about retail or CPG, I used to consult before, enormous amount of data sets, multiple copies of the data sets existed, right? And nobody seems to know where it is.
right,
Everybody knew their piece of the puzzle, but nobody has in a company could say that, oh, we have these many unique set of data sets.
right,
Correct. Because sales guys would have their own, the marketing guys would have their own, the CFO has his own, CIO has his own, right?
right,
And most of them are duplicated, replicated, and whatnot.
right,
Uh, so when you're trying to build anything meaningful insights from data sets that you're not sure, you will get the results which are also not sure.
right,
Right. So fundamentally, for any business, whether it is CPG or retail, what are my three big questions that I want to address this year or next year?
next year.
right?
Right.
Am I looking for a larger share of wallet from from the customer, or am I looking at larger volumes of foot traffic in my store? Correct.
Right.
Or am I looking at increasing the number of products that we have in the store? So we eventually that relates to the share of the wallet that I want to out of it.
Right.
Correct. Or it could be a purely branding exercise saying I just want to get into the new business in some time.
Right.
Correct. Adjacent with business. So once you have a little bit of an idea as to what I want to achieve, and then with your existing data sets, you can actually start analyzing what are the things that I need to change.
Right.
For example, if I really want to increase the share of the wallet, then how could I like what do you call excite Ketan to buy more things from my store?
Right.
Correct, right? Um, people for years people have been studying this from behavioral analytics, right?
Right.
And there have been so many marketing theories, right? And very very popular, this Cotter theory, or I forget the other person's name, uh, which has its own mechanism to talk about how marketing has to be done.
Right.
But but all those theories have been put to doom by Baba Ramdev. Right,
Yes. Yes.
right. If you read those theories carefully, how the product placement is there, who should showcase it, right? Uh, and now the biggest role model in India has been for selling was Baba Ramdev.
Right.
And right,
Right.
if you look at the last 10, 15 years, right?
Right.
No, and the advertisement, the most graceful picture is of him selling everything, right?
Right.
Uh, from toothpaste to
Yes.
medicines to
Everything.
whatnot, right?
Yes. Yes.
Everything, right? One model for everything.
Yes.
Whereas if you look in the Western world, you have models after models for various things.
Right.
So you see, so sometimes if we all get stuck to one theory, then we will be in trouble,
Right.
right? And the data in this case shows that his marketing campaign has been very successful, right?
Yes.
Baba Ramdev's, right? So old theories don't work. So if you actually designed your data elements based on purely one old theory, then you will not be getting the results that you want.
Right.
Correct? And hence defining the problem and understanding what I want to achieve. Again, I have always worked on this concept of phases, like long term, short term, right, mid term, what I really want to do. Correct?
Right.
Because that way it gives you the ability to steer your output in the right direction.
Right.
It's like driving the car. I can only see as far as I can see, right? If the road is going downhill at some point, then I am going at whatever 60 miles per hour. But if I can't see beyond that, that means I need to slow down before I actually just suddenly the car goes down, right?
Right.
Right. So if you think of in a phased manner, then you are in a good shape. And as a result, when you think of these things, then you can actually combine the data sets that you need at the right place,
Right.
right? And it also gives you the ability not only to combine data in the set time series way, so to say, but also in the different spectrum, right? For
Right.
example, you may have sales data for right, and you may be able to connect it to completely different data sets that did not mean anything to the sales directly but
Right.
indirectly,
Right.
right? Whether it is a geopolitical data, or whether it is a weather data, or whether it is a move like people move data, something like that, right?
Something like that.
And it can totally change the way you are thinking of implementing new solution.
Right. Right.
And then after 6 months, if you did it, okay, short term I am looking for this, 6 months period I'm looking for something else, you have ability to connect it to a new set of data sets
Right.
and
Right.
on top of it. So it's like thinking of building images by on stack,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right, at time series. and that could be significant value. Whether
Right.
I should do social media in December, whether I should do social media in January, when do I really do it to get maximum output?
Right. Right.
Right. So these things are so combination of factors. What is in
Factors.
the play will help you define what data sets to connect at what level, at until what depth, or so to say, in how many years back or how many years, how many months data you want to collect, how many dimensions or the features of the data you want to leverage
Yeah.
is dependent on that. Hence, coming back to the same question, why am I building a startup?
Right.
What problem am I solving?
Right. Right.
Is very important even in established companies.
Right, right. I think that's a very valid point that you said. It's all first begins with the mindset, like you said. What are the different kind of problems, that it's a top-down approach thing where you say that these are the three problems you're trying to solve. Put it. I think you said another very interesting point about the phases. That once you have the problems, then how do you want to put it into phases? The short term versus the long term. Then set the objectives for that effectiveness use of the data, and the business use case being another access to it, that how do you pan out the business use case. So in addition to what you said, given your vast experience across industries and having worked for so many years, so what are some of the roles that you see that were not existent due to this data wave probably 10 years ago, and now they have come up in the enterprises?
Yeah, so many are there. Like, if I look at last since 1999 or 2000, right?
Right.
When I joined the internet company, nobody talked about so-called uh, data scientists, right? That term
Right.
did not exist,
Did not
correct?
exist.
Or even machine learning experts only existed in terms of uh, very few companies, right?
Right.
Uh, and that too because only people with like doing course or PhD in machine learning or
Right.
algorithms development rather,
Right.
right? So those people were called machine learning experts,
Experts.
right? Because they were doing neural networks, and most of them were called neural network
Right.
experts. And then I would say in 2000 or so, people started looking at data analytics. Then it became data analytics as a function,
Function.
and then you want data analytics, data analysts, right?
Right.
There was business analyst, then data analyst
Right.
started, right? Um, and then I think slowly it evolved when the algorithms became a little bit more popular. Then suddenly the Silicon Valley created one term called data scientist,
Right.
right? Now, from my perspective, I don't know it's a fancy term, even though I had a title like that, but it's all about doing science on the data.
Right.
Well,
Right.
there were statisticians who were doing that same thing, but at a different level.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Every quantum chemist or statistical mechanics person or bioinformatics person was already doing that function, like doing science on the data, right?
Right.
But Silicon Valley propagated and started this concept called data scientist. Then they suddenly realized that people realized, oh, data scientist means they are creating high value things, but we need people to connect the data, move the data,
Right.
etc., which in olden days data warehouse people used to do,
Right.
right? Now they created a new term called data engineering,
Yes. Right.
right? But again, when such things happen, it actually creates a little bit of a challenge. It has advantages, but it also creates problem. Now you've created literally a silo in this whole pipeline,
Right.
right? You have data engineers who can only pull the data from some source, arrange it in such a way, and then give it to a data scientist who will actually run the model.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Now, a lot of challenges are here. If the data scientist doesn't understand, he just gets a call that's for the sake of talk. He gets one page, right?
Right.
And he just built the model.
Right.
Now, if he doesn't understand what those columns means, how they were generated, he can keep interpreting those results, which mean nothing to anyone.
Very true. I think this is a very, what you say, I can so relate to the challenge that you just mentioned about the columns example. I think this is a great example that I would love you to, maybe elaborate a more bit upon.
Yeah. And on the other hand, the data engineers, so to say, they are connecting data sets because some domain person has told them to connect in the right way, which actually beats the purpose of data science.
Right.
Right? Data science fundamental is that you have data sets available, you generate a pattern by combining things, and then ask the domain experts to explain the pattern. Right?
Yes.
Rather than a domain expert telling you do A, B, C, D plus F, G, H, now whatever the output is what I want. Then you have already built the olden days of dashboards.
Yes.
Correct? And
Yes.
that and as I speak on many times, 60 to 80% of dashboards are waste in companies,
Right.
right? Because one is static, second they have been designed for me or you to look at it from what I actually wanted to look at,
Right.
right? So other persons, they have no value to it.
Right.
What today we need is like insights that can actually transform business, right?
Right.
And that can only happen when a person like data scientist who can look through the whole stack, generate some insights, then talk to the domain expert to explain the phenomena that's taking place through this data visualization or output, and then saying, okay, why is this outlier event happened on such and such time? What is the root cause of it? What could have been done to avoid it?
Right.
Right? And
Right.
that becomes powerful.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
And hence, I personally always believed, and having practiced that for so many years, any person who is so-called data scientist should know all aspect of it.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly highlight that because you said a very important thing for the listeners. So when you say all aspects, you are saying that all aspects of the business on which the data scientist is working upon, right?
Correct. And how the data has been pulled out of a database, how it has been combined to build your training set.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If you don't know, then you are training on something that you don't know what you are training on.
Yes. Very
Correct?
true.
So having that context is very important.
Right.
And that then it's a meaningful it and this thing relates to Gen AI as well. It's the same
Right.
thing, right?
It's the same thing.
What am I asking and how am I doing it? And then if you look at cloud computing engineers came, right? Nowadays, suddenly prompt engineers have come up, right?
Right.
And then we have all these so-called visualization experts,
Right.
correct? Um, uh, when I was doing my postdoc, I had to do all three of them, right?
Right.
Generate the data, create the structure of the molecule, do the simulations, and then visualize the results,
Right.
right? So you have to, as a scientist, you do everything
Right.
because you are the only one who, so to call, like, can explain the phenomena.
Right.
But in business world, you create these silos, which leads to inefficiencies and then complaints that oh, things are not moving fast.
Right. Right.
So I think it's time that people realize that having at least awareness and education of all aspects of this pipeline is critical for everyone,
Right.
even for business leaders. I will give you an example in oil and gas industry.
Mhm.
I will not name any companies,
Of course.
but
Yes.
they said, um, we will give you the data. Can you give us the results in 6 weeks of
Right.
building a model from scratch on a very complex process? Correct.
Mhm.
I said, surely I can give you that. But can you promise me that you will sign the statement of work in 6 weeks from today? Right.
Right.
Now,
Right.
this is an industry which has built on writing these contracts and statement of works forever.
Right.
Right, 100 years
Right.
is in almost in industry is.
Right.
They cannot actually sign a statement of work or a contract in 6 weeks.
Right.
right?
Right.
Which is literally a 3 to 5, maximum set 20-page paper,
Right.
right? Which
Right.
says this is the company, this is the profile, this is what we will do, correct?
Correct.
But they are expecting a data scientist or group of data scientists to analyze 15 years of data, which has no catalog,
Right.
right? And then train the model and give them the results,
Right. Right.
right? And then they say, and if it cannot be done, then they say the AI is not working. Is that true? Like you see, that's the
Right.
mindset challenge,
Mindset.
correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is true. This is true not only in oil and gas. I consulted many years back in retail, CPG.
Right.
I will not name the name company again, but I had told them that if you continue to do this way analytics, I guarantee you your stores will close.
Right.
And I can that 4 years after what I made that prediction or forecasting or whatever you want to call the word, that chain had started closing the stores, and they continue to close stores,
Right.
right? Because you cannot you cannot ignore data,
Right. Right.
whatever it is.
I think that's a very important perception point that you talked about, that sometimes people in our industry, they have a thing that AI is magic, and you just put the data set and the data scientist is going to do some magic and get you results. But like you said, it's not that. It's a combination of different roles coming together. It's a combination of choosing the right tech, having the right mindset, and what exactly you want as the output, and doing it the correct way to get the business results. So very thankful for bringing that point in our discussion. Now, just teasing you on one more question on the oil and gas. You gave that one example, having worked. I know that you have worked for many years in consulting on that front. So, something like an oil and gas industry, there has been a talk about the tech adoption lag in that industry. So, just wanted your views, of us on a sector sometimes not, which is lagging on from a tech adoption perspective. So, what steps that kind of a sector can take to better adopt for the cutting edge technologies?
Yeah, I think whether it is oil and gas, but I will say energy in general, and in even more generalized, I can do is complex industries,
Right.
right? Uh, the pace of evolution of these technology, the emerging technology, is significant, right? It's really fast,
Right.
correct? Whereas some of these complex industries, the pace of evolution is pretty slow, right?
Right.
Uh, and they have been sitting on so-called cash a lot,
Right.
right? And hence they could not see the value of implementing new technologies when their profitability has been so high,
True.
correct?
Right.
And hence if I do a very high level, if I asked MBA students to do a project, you will find that these industries which had so much profitability or cash on hand, they were not keen on investing on people to train them for the next generation technologies.
Right.
So that speaks to me of a lack of leadership and forward thinking leadership, basically saying that okay, we have been making money, so why do I care,
Right.
correct?
Right.
But then disruptions have started happening in other industries. So many industries got disrupted, and now they feel the pinch. Uh, but not many of them have clue how to go it, because for these technologies, these emerging technologies which can create exponential value, I use the term that you also need exponential leadership,
Right.
right? Not just the talent.
Right.
And an exponential leadership is different from the traditional leadership that I or a management, like oh, I'm managing a team, or I'm the leader of this organization as the CIO or CTO or something, right?
Right.
Here you're talking about not only taking the organization with you to do a leap
Right.
by using set of technologies that are leaping forward at a much faster pace,
Right.
right? And hence, I think what they can do is one, they have to get their leaders trained on what is the concept of exponential leadership, right?
Right.
How do I tame these emerging or exponential technologies
Right.
and actually help people in the organization to train. Most of the people, including myself, we started doing big data. So-called big data was, if it's a term, or in those days Hadoops of the world, right?
Right.
By learning ourselves,
Mhm.
right? Or data science. In fact, 20, 30 years back, there were no libraries to actually run neural networks. You have to write the
Right.
code from scratch,
From scratch.
right?
Yes.
So most of us did it on our own, and in most of these industry, whether it's energy companies, oil and gas, anybody who's actually doing anything with the so-called big data or AI, they are all self-learned people,
Right.
right? Industry has not invested in them,
Right.
right? Now they are waking up. They're waking up too late for me,
Right.
right? Uh, and that's a problem. They have been wasting so much money in the process,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So, but I think the time has come. If you don't disrupt I know that in oil and gas there are some very progressive companies now, say in Canada or Norway, which are actually looking at things to do differently.
Mhm.
So it will give a challenging aspect to other companies in this space.
Right. Right. So I think you said a very again crucial point about the exponential leadership and how do you get the leadership aligned on some of these things, because it always helps a top down approach. If that the leadership is aligned, I'm sure that it trickles down to the rest of the folks. So my last question, is for the academician in you, that there are lots of these technologies coming up, so we are going to require a human workforce also to be trained on all these gen ais of the world or the ais of the world, and there's a large landscape. So how do you as an academician see that education landscape as well, whether it's the learning and development departments inside a company, which you already touched some points in our last question, but also from a futuristic what you say creation of the workforce in these areas.
Yeah, good question. Even though I work for industry, I've always been associated with academics. Um, I think as I don't know, like maybe it's like once you're once an academic, always remains an academic. But but more importantly, what I feel as having worked in industry for so long, and then side by side in academics, it's a I feel it's a great combination for both for the faculty as well as for the students, right?
Right.
Uh, things things that we can relate in industry. Uh, Many of the so-called full-time faculty or the professors can't see it.
Right.
Hence, hence I was giving examples, say for marketing or any other such domain. Practice is different from pure academics, right?
Right.
Even if you look at research papers, right? Um, some of the top journals, they will write a framework, and the framework is based on another 30 other papers.
Right.
Right? Implementing those frameworks in practice is very hard,
True.
right?
Right.
Because practice is all about using the time, the money, and the people effectively and efficiently.
Right.
Most of the frameworks that are done in theory, they're just not practical.
Yes.
And hence, training people is there. Like over the last, I think, 10 plus, about 15 years or so, both in university and private, not privately, like individually, I have been doing these master classes,
Oh, amazing.
right?
Right.
On big data when the big data was hot. On big data, I've trained so many people in Middle East, right? Like some of the famous, now I will not mention, but some of these
Right.
people are now leading organizations in Middle East, right?
Nice. Nice.
Some of the very important organizations, they have been my students,
Right.
right? On how to implement or how to leverage these technologies.
Right.
In fact, I've recently conducted a couple of master classes on exponential leadership for oil and gas in Canada and US.
Oh, that's
Right,
fascinating. Yes.
and the feedback I got from the attendees, which were people at the director and vice president level, has been significant. Right, they
Right.
never thought that this is something they can think of.
Right.
Right. Uh, and then of course, I have been conducting a lot of with my teams over the years, purely in how to leverage machine learning for various specific challenges within the industry.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So in fact, in my previous job, if I hired data scientists, then those data scientists I also like trained them to become instructors.
Right.
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 Right, because when you are practicing, the way you teach is different than you take a textbook and teach.
Very true. Very true. I think that's a
Right.
very crucial and very important point that you mentioned.
So for last, I think, couple of years, I've been teaching at Narsimanji as well, and
Nice.
almost all my students, I ask them to write an IEEE paper,
Right.
right,
Right.
on a practical problem,
Right.
right. So
Right.
go back, borrow data from some company,
Right.
do whatever model you can build. I'm not saying, oh, you build the highest or the best, get like 5 year data nobody will give you,
Right.
right? And then write the whole story from what was the problem to what the solution you find, what are your recommendations,
Right.
get a buy-in for that same company, right? Whether
Right.
it is 10 rows of data or whether it's 2 million rows of data, right?
Yes.
Uh, Correct.
Correct.
Then they got the full. Now they know exactly what is the process of leveraging data science.
Right. Right. Right.
Correct.
Correct.
Whether
I
it
think
is
there's a lot
whether
of
it is the
value.
problem, right?
Yes.
And so that's the academician in me wants
Right.
to teach the practical aspects of it to
Right.
apply, rather than I can always teach all the equations of quantum mechanics, right?
Right. Right.
Right. That
Right.
that I could probably do it in sleep, but
Right.
but I
Right.
think the practical applications are more important when we
Yes.
are talking in business. Business is all about business, right?
Right.
Not academics. So this combination is really great.
Right. 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 I think, at the end, I just want to say that we are very thankful for, for having you come here and spend time with us and talk about all these different aspects of how you see the landscape of generative AI, then the tools pipelining that we talked about. Then how you said that the mindset of having a startup mindset, and why do you want to do these things with your data, what exactly are the problem statements you are looking at, then going into how the exponential leadership angle of adoption of the tech in sectors which are lagging behind, and touching few things on the academics, on the mix of how do you bring the practicality to your classes to make it relevant for the folks. So, Dr. Satyam, it has been a great pleasure at Converge for us to host you on this podcast, and we are really thankful for having you spend the time with us.
No, thank you, Ketan.
Thank you.
Thank you to Shashank as well. All
Thank you.
right.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Thank you.